for questions and discussion afterwards. As varied, I will also present a bit of my ongoing research. So I will introduce you something new that doesn't have a form or a visual, or is very immaterial yet. Something that was not part of my biography is that I'm the founder of the Institute of Human Obsolescence, and today mostly I will speak on that role. So my research is about human obsolescence, and to explain what is it about is about the process on which machines, algorithms, robots, Watson are starting to replace many of our forms of labor. Forms of labor that include manual labor, construction work, building estates that now can be done by robots, but also forms of labor of what we consider as intellectual labor. So thinking processes, lecturing. In the future, probably we have a language teacher that is just an algorithm that can teach Spanish much faster than a real teacher. So that's a bit my research process. But I went to look back at history, at other animal species that also suffer this transition to obsolescence, and I found very interesting to look at horses. So in the 19th century, horses were used for almost everything, for building houses, for transportation of humans, for transportation of goods, for taking water, for almost anything. But then the steam engine was invented, and suddenly the population of horses just made a huge sudden decrease. It was a really precarious time. No one wanted to take care anymore of horses. They were not useful, and they remain as now just as a kind of entertaining animal. So you have a horse if you are rich and want to ride your horse, or to see races of horses, or to see them in a zoo. And this image is one of the few exceptions. After the economic crash around the 30s, it became too expensive to buy petrol for your car. So you started to see many cars that suddenly were not pushed by the steam engine, but by horses again. So it's as one of the exceptions on which society pushed back, and horses for a short period of time become useful again. Now I'm going to jump to the present again. I think I was reading a text by Silvio Lorusso that speaks about the idea of the entreprecariat. So it's this mix between the precarious worker and the entrepreneur. So he coined this term of entreprecariat that I find very problematic in many ways. So this is a protest, I believe it's in Germany, Munich, against Uber. So it's lots of taxi drivers now are complaining about Uber. It poses many questions also related to the whole topic of the smart city, and Francesca yesterday was mentioning also how Barcelona is dealing with Uber, Airbnb, and all of these new methods of labor. My best friend in Spain is a taxi driver, and we always have this conversation why Uber is so bad, and I always try to tell him, like, yeah, but aren't you looking a bit forward in time? Is Uber the real threat, or this is going to be more the real threat? So it's actually not that. I see it as a short-term problematic that now everyone can become a taxi driver through Uber, but this is a self-driving car that is going to replace both the Uber drivers and the traditional taxi drivers. So this, I think, makes consistent my idea of human obsolescence and how machines, algorithms that also run this car are starting to replace us. So this is already a test that Uber is doing in San Francisco. So they have already a fleet of these cars taking passengers, driving without a driver. So it becomes quite interesting when there is so much discussion now against Uber, but I just see it as a short period of time that very soon the Uber drivers are going to be replaced by just algorithms that drive these cars. Another example of what Lorusso argues as the entreprecariat is Deliveroo or Fedora. I don't know exactly which of these companies you have in Austria, but it's basically a fast food service that follows the same principle as Uber. You can take your bike, take one of these boxes in your back, and deliver food. There are a lot of protests, a lot of discussion if this is replacing some other more professional jobs, if you don't have, for example, if you have an accident, you are not insured. It's a really precarious form of labor. But again, if I try to foresee a bit what is coming after this, I jump in the same problematic that all of these food delivery services are going to be replaced by either drones or small robots or the self-driving cars that are going to deliver goods or foods without a human involved as part of the process. So this is Amazon Prime Air. They are doing some tests already of Amazon delivery by drone. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about my actual project, and that is also going to be presented at ESC, a gallery here in Graz. The opening is on Saturday at 6. The title is Speculative Capital, and it's a project of the Institute of Human Obsolescence. So in this context on which humans cannot perform anymore either manual or intellectual labor, I'm trying to find ways or to explore ways of how to reposition the roles of humans, the role of humans in society. And this is what I call biological labor. So I'm hiring workers to perform biological labor in working shifts of 1, 2, or 3 hours to use this bodysuit. This bodysuit harvests their excess body heat to transform it into electricity that runs a small microcomputer that is producing cryptocurrency. For the ones not familiar with cryptocurrency, something like bitcoins is a form of digital money that to produce it you don't print money like we print with euros, but you have a computer running a small algorithm. So basically, your duty when you sign a contract with us remains as laying down in a table for the period given producing money. That's this principle of biological labor. And this was my first exploration of how to cope with the idea of obsolescence. And now slowly I will introduce you what is the new project that I'm working on. But before going into that, I found these banners. There was this protest in Zurich of robots fighting for basic income. So there are some kind of funny images of a protest of robots, and the idea is that the robots will really like that we all get a basic income, so the robots will do all the hard labor for us, and we can just be artists, or write novels, or do whatever, because our survival will be covered through this basic income, that it will be an unconditional basic income. We wouldn't need to do anything in order to receive it. Well, it was a kind of ludic protest with a kind of humoristic tone as a positive change if the robots will be campaigning for basic income for the humans. But then I saw this video, I think it was released 2 weeks ago, some of you might have seen it. It's Bill Gates, former of Microsoft, already going to an old age, arguing that we have more and more companies that are replacing the human worker with a robot. Therefore, these companies stop paying taxes for the human worker and just have a robot that does this work without paying for any tax. So it's a really beneficial movement for these companies to just replace all the humans for robots and not pay any taxes. Even regardless that the robot will make the work more efficiently, it won't become sick and so on, it's also a tax benefit. So Gates was campaigning for a robot tax. If we replace a human for a robot, companies will pay for a tax for this robot. I think it's a really smart move for Gates as a businessman, because that means you can just replace all humans with robots, and the company pays the same tax. You just change from paying the tax for the human to pay it for the robot. But in the way, we have lost a human job. So if this becomes the policy, we will all lose our jobs, and companies will still profit in the same way as we do now. So perhaps it will be more interesting to tax the benefits or to tax the capital of these companies rather than to just replace the tax of the human to to the tax of the robot. But many people was finding this discussion of Gates, this argument, like really progressive, and it's really nice that Gates is claiming it's good to tax the robots. I find it really problematic because it just forgets completely that we are losing human jobs. And thinking about this idea of basic income, this is the first time that I speak about this new project. So in the Institute of Human Obsolescence, we did a first exploration using biological labor. But more and more, I start to see that the real value of what we are producing now, it's in our data. The data that we generate is generating large, vast amounts of capital for companies like Facebook, Google, and many others that we all know. We are all aware that these companies, we don't know how much, we don't know exactly how, but we know that they are benefiting from it. The problem is that we are still understanding risk relation with these companies as if we are the users. So when you enter in Facebook.com, you see this beautiful sentence that says, Facebook is free and it always will be, because it's a service. They claim that we are the users of Facebook, but what I think that we are the product. We are the thing that they are selling. Our data is what gives capital, what gives profit to them. So in the new project that I'm working on, I'm trying to start to understand the production of data as a form of labor. What if I consider every time that I generate data as a form of labor? What does it mean that I don't have a regular job, that I'm jobless and unemployed, but I'm using Google and Facebook, so I'm generating capital for society? Then it comes more a question of who is getting this capital, but what does it mean to be a jobless person if I'm actually producing capital? Why we, the data workers, aren't profiting from it? So this question led me to think, will it be possible to exchange our data for a basic income, or what will we call a data basic income? Will it be ethical, first of all? Will I be willing to exchange all of my data, all of my privacy in exchange? For example, in Utrecht, in the Netherlands, that's where I live, they are doing an experiment of universal basic income of 980 euros. Will I be willing to exchange all of my information for 980 euros per month? I think that's an interesting question to ask myself. But in the moment that I get some money in return, suddenly I think, maybe my data is really valuable. In the moment that I get money for something, I start to question more whether it's a good idea or not. But then if I say, no, I don't change my privacy for this basic income, I'm thinking, wait, I'm already giving all of this data already, but I'm just not profiting from it. So could we make a case for a data basic income on which we will exchange all of our information for this basic income? So this is going to be the new project that I'm working on. In the first one, I am using, and please, I invite you to come to ESC and sign a contract and produce biological labor with us. So now I'm thinking in a new contract on which you will be signing a contract that gives away your data in exchange for this basic income. And I just find interesting the idea of asking you if you will be willing to do these things. I think I will keep it short now, so I will finish like this, and if there are some questions, comments, or remarks, I'm very curious to hear it. Thank you.